Hello everybody and welcome back. Hopefully you guys are all doing phenomenal. Today we are going to be covering the run-up procedures in the King Air C90. So, none of them are too difficult, but they are definitely critical in a real airplane. So, first thing we do is we set the parking brake to on. That is down here in this aircraft. Normally I have to push the brake pedals down, pull that out, and it kind of cinches them in place. First thing that we need to do is check the pressurization, but it doesn't quite work. I don't think it's completely modeled in X-Planes, so we're not going to be running through that procedure today just because it won't get us anything. The second thing that we want to do is check the trims. We look down here, go trim down, go trim up, and that all works. We're now going to set trim to the second detent, that's our takeoff, and verify that the trim rails are at 0, 0, and second detent. So that's our takeoff. Alright, next one we do is our flaps check. So, we can go detent all the way down, make sure that flaps go all the way down. And then we can go flaps up to approach, which is also takeoff, and then all the way up, make sure that our indicators are all saying exactly what they should be. Also, when we did all those, we should look out, verify that we're actually getting flap extension and retraction. So we're going to go flaps back up since we've got all those checked. Next thing we need to do is check our flight controls, free and correct. Not only does the stick move, which means that our stick is mapped, we need to look out the wing, up, down, and if we had somebody that could look, there we go, up and down. So, flight controls are free and correct. Definitely make sure you check your rudders before you go up. You really need to actually make sure that those are mapped, or else you're going to have a very bad time. Alright, next thing we're going to do is do the prop governor test. Set prop governor to test. Nice and simple. Then we need to get our view set up so that we can see the torque, the prop, and the turbine. Then we're going to grab the left throttle only, and we're going to start to run it up. Don't go too quickly or else you will overheat and burn the engine. That's bad. But slowly advance the throttle until we get the governor. That is a little over 1900 and a little bit under 1200 on the torque. We are good there. Bring it back to idle. Make sure it returns back down to normal. Extinguish any lights if we have any. We do not, so we are good. Make sure we can see the torque. Do the same with the right engine. Advance it. Torque should rise. Prop should rise. Turbine should also rise. Push forward. Verify that turbine at 100%. Prop stops about 1925. Torque is all the way up. We did not overspeed anything. We are governor limited because this will go all the way up. And then bring it nice and back to idle. So, next one we're going to actually do is the feather test. I believe we can set the prop governor test to off. So, next thing we're going to test is feathering. We can advance both the left and the right engine to 1800 on the prop. We're going to slowly ease it up because it will come up pretty quickly. And this is technically considered a low RPM test. We're going to go to 1800. Overshot it a little bit, so I got to come back just a smidgen. We're at 1800. So, most of the rest of the tests are going to be done from here. So, left engine, we're going to bring that back. We're going to watch the left torque rise as the prop RPM drops, it should be pretty proportional, and then at a certain point, once we hit feather, you gotta watch for that to just dump, or else it will basically stall the engine. So as soon as it gets kind of down to 10, it will super quickly go down to 5. You unfeather the engine, and everything should return back to normal. Repeat the same thing on the right. Pull the prop back, watch the RPMs drop drastically, go back forward, and we are all good there. So, next thing we want to do is actually check our bleed air, but I don't believe it's implemented, so we won't be able to check that. Unfortunately, most of the air stuff is not really implemented because you can't really tell. So, next thing we are going to do is actually check our auto feather, which we have to hold. So we are going to push and hold auto throttle, or auto feather. Then we're going to increase. Actually, we need to be able to see those gauges. We need to be able to see all these warning lights. So we are going to push and hold auto feather. We're going to advance the throttles. And normally you want to do these one at a time. To increase power, anything above 500 foot-pounds of torque, and the left and right auto feather should come on. So we're going to go back to idle. And the auto feather lights are both on, so that is a good test. Alright, next thing we're going to do, so normally you would want to test both the throttles individually, but I don't really have a good way of both holding an auto feather button and moving a throttle at the same time, since you can only click one thing or the other. So unfortunately that's the end of that test. Verifying that at test, it says left and right auto feather up here on the console. So we are going to do an idle feather. Normally you do want to do this at idle. Alright, so we're going to come down here. We're going to note our prop and our torque. And then we're going to come back and feather this one. And again, we're looking for that sharp spike in prop RPM. That was it. And the return to a standard RPM of about 1300. We're going to do the same on the right. Try not to stall it. There we go. It's just that real drop off when the prop essentially becomes a giant brick in the wind. At this point, we are actually pretty much done with the check. And we want to do bleed valves both open. If we actually could have used these, we would have checked them. And they would have been closed, so we need to make sure they're both open. Then we need to go annunciator lights are either considered or extinguished. Anything up here, you want to basically look over it, make sure that it's all fine. You don't have anything bad going on up there. Things like the ignition arm, the engine auto ignition, that will generate a light up there, but that's actually a good light. It's not a warning or an error. It's just telling us that the left engine ignition is set to auto arm, and we're at low RPMs, which means that the ignition is actually firing. So that's an example of something that you would want to check or consider. Next thing we're going to do is set the transponder to altitude. And if we were given a squawk code by the tower, we would have that in there. Ice protection as required. It is a nice, clear day. It's pretty warm outside, so we do not need any ice protection. If you did, you could turn on windshield anti-ice, the actual prop anti-ice, fuel vent anti-ice, the pitot heat you normally do want to turn on, and the stall warning, just because it can get cold if you're going up in altitude. But if you leave these on too long on the ground, you can actually start burning out heating coils. Those things can get ridiculously hot, and I don't believe you can melt the pitot heat or the probe, but I do think you can burn out heating elements, so you don't want to keep these on all the time. just when in flight on relatively chilly days, I would say. Because if those do get too hot, you will start getting some problems and you could burn them out when you actually need them. Next thing we do is set engine auto ignition to arm. We want to make sure that the prop governor is set to, the test is set to off. Auto feather we want to leave in the off position. If we have that in arm and we lose an engine, it will feather the other engine. So on takeoff, we'll essentially lose both engines instead of one. That's a very bad thing. Engine and ignition both need to be to off. Engine auto ignition to arm. Lights set as desired. Since we are taking off, we do want both the landing lights on. We don't need the taxi light on anymore. It's daytime and we're not looking for ice, so we don't need ice. Recognition we can turn on. Beacon strobe, and let's show off our company colors. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a super quick run-up. So, hope you guys enjoyed that quick run-up. If I can get any more details or as things become more implemented, I can update this video later. The next thing you would do after this is essentially prepare for takeoff, which means flaps to either approach or up, depending on your configuration. We've got a super long runway, so we could put those to up on this takeoff, since we're also light. And that covers just about everything. Trim is set, flaps are set. We could set up our autopilot if we so desired. And we're ready for takeoff. And we will see you guys in the next episode.